What do you think of the parents that kick their kids out as soon as they have turned 18 years old? They're not Italian, that's for sure. Here in Italy, when the child is finally ready to leave the house at the age of 35, the family gets together to bid them a tearful goodbye before they move 1 kilometer away from their parents' house. I was one of those kids. The rule in my house was you were out by 18 unless you were still in high school. In that case, you were out on graduation day. It's their right, but I disagree with it. I was kicked out the day I turned 17. I lived out of my car for 3 months while working fast food and completing my senior year. I would have probably dropped out had it not been for my best friend's dad. He found out about the situation and forced me to move in with them. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He had recently got divorced because his stay-at-home wife was cheating on him. Because they had a spare bedroom and I was friends with both his sons that lived with him. He told me, "It's just us guys living there and having fun. You stay until you finish school. After that, you can pay $100 a month in rent until you decide what to do." Don't argue with me. The man's a saint. I wouldn't have been able to keep going to school without him. And he knew it. He's a guy who had to drop out to work back in the day to support his family. He got his GED and clawed his way up to head engineer at a factory so he could afford a nice home for his wife and kids. He bought a nice 2-story home that he barely got to stay in for a woman who didn't appreciate him. The man even came home every single day and cooked meals for us to make sure we'd eat. In the middle of fighting a divorce, trying to get custody of both of his kids, and keep the house he paid for, he took me in. Adding to the stress, he did that for me just because I was friends with his sons. If I ever get rich, that man is getting an early retirement and a comfortable home wherever he chooses. If that man can do all that for someone that isn't his child, parents have no excuse for not helping their own kids out. My BF got kicked out at 18 and his parents literally said to his face, "Since you were an accident. And we didn't mean to have you. We need you out of the house now so we can actually relax like we used to before you were born." Anyway, I think extremely badly of them. Kicking out your kid as soon as you're legally allowed to do so tells me you wanted them out of the house even earlier, and the only reason you didn't do it is because you didn't want to be arrested. Was one of those kids. Haven't spoken to my parents in over 10 years. Have no intention on speaking to them any time in the future either. Great candidates for a nursing home in their later years. I can't imagine having to deal with that. My dad lost a place to live at his parents' house for the summer his last year of college, and luckily my mom's parents let him stay in their basement. From what my parents told me, my dad was devastated by this. My parents' rule was we would have a place to stay without paying rent as long as we were in school, or after we graduated while we were getting our first job. I really appreciated their support and not needing to worry about housing during the summers while I was in college. We'll be doing the same with my 3 kids. Generally speaking, I'd say those parents don't understand the reality of the current economic landscape, and that unless they made a Herculean effort, they probably didn't set their kid up properly to do well. Not to mention that during most of history and in the vast majority of cultures, leaving home at 18 just was not a thing. You generally stayed at home until you married, whatever age that may be. And even after, you might still live with your parents, or even if you have your own home, you'd be very closely connected, often still working the same land together, etc. The idea that people are supposed to move out at 18 and make it on their own when they're still 46 years from full mental development BTW is by far the exception rather than the rule historically. Welp. I was kicked out at 16 and again at 18. My mother had no ambitions for work and decided the low to zero income way of life was a good choice to raise 3 kids. Addictions and mental disorders OFC. Anyhow, she demanded $500 per month from me while I was in high school. At the time, a full-time job at minimum wage would net you about $300 bi-weekly. Needless to say, I first had to drop out of school to work full-time to pay her that. Eventually I got back into school, cut back on, and quit jobs until I was part-time and could actually attend school. This caused money to stop coming in. This caused her to be angry. This caused me to become homeless. So now when she asks for help, or simply wants to talk to me, and I don't reply, well, there you go. There were many other things involved. But if you are a dick to your kids, they will be a dick to you when they are adults. Rightfully so. Yes, I am now a parent, and no, under no circumstances would I do what she did. My older brother was a complete narcissistic asshole. He would hit me often and told me, if I told my parents, he would kill me. He was constantly causing problems with my parents. My father told him that on his 18th birthday, he could have breakfast in the house, but his lunch was going to be on the front porch in a paper bag. So pack a suitcase. My father was true to his word. One of the greatest days of my life. Dad didn't want to have kids. Once we were 7 or 8 years old, my mother pretended to still like us, but she didn't seem to. Had more independent personalities. I believe that many past generations had children more out of obligation than out of a genuine desire to be parents for the rest of their lives. They're fools, selfishly setting up their children for a life of unnecessary hardship and struggle. It depends on the kid. We kicked out our daughter because she became violent and attacked my wife. Our son is welcome to stay until he is ready to leave. Asshole move emo. They are terrible parents who will likely end up in a state-run nursing home. If you have a child, your goal is to make sure your child has every tool to succeed in life before they go out on their own, regardless if that is 18, 23, 25 plus. My plan is once my child hits 18, I will ask them to pay me a small rent amount, like 20% of a normal one-bed apartment rent monthly, but I will be putting it all into a separate bank account, and once they decide it's time to move out, I'll give all of it back to them as a gift. They will always have a place to stay with me if things get tough as well. I think they're bad parents. They clearly don't understand what the world is like for recent high school grads. They're selfish and want their home back and don't want to keep feeding and housing their kid. Or they didn't raise a self-sufficient child ready to try fending for themselves. They're setting up their kids for failure. Harsh, but true. I'm no kids by choice, but if I ever were to have a kid, I'd do my best to provide the best for them. What that means in this situation, I live in a HCOLPNW city, is that I'd make it known to my kid that they're more than welcome to stay at home while going to college and working, so they can save up dollar instead of paying off someone else's mortgage via rent. Rent for an old one-bedroom in my city goes for $20,002,200. Best to stay home and save up equity. Edit. It also speaks to the type of parent these people are. Parenting doesn't suddenly stop at 18. This is also a particularly Canadian, American thing. Whereas immigrant and/or first-generational families typically have multi-generational households. My parents are kicking me out at 16. If the parent has a decent reason, then go for them, but otherwise I think it's terrible. Why have kids if you're just going to be done with them after a certain point? Like, I understand some people need a harsh nudge, and that they will have to learn at some point to live without you. But isn't it a better testament to your parenting for your children to be able to leave on their own accord and flourish, without you having to kick them out? If you're just waiting, counting down the years, until it's legally allowed to no longer care for someone, then why do it at all? Why have kids in the first place? It really is no wonder why most elderly get carted off to the nearest nursing home, when most of them did this to their kids.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.